Before we get into what is slope and how to find it, let's first do this do now. Find f of negative 3 and f of 2 when f of x equals x squared plus 3x minus 2. So first, we know that x equals negative 3. So I'm going to replace every time I see an x in my expression with negative 3. I could also just tell my calculator that x equals negative 3 and then type in the expression. I just can't do that here on this calculator. So I'm doing it the old-fashioned way where I plug in the negative 3. And out I would get negative 2. So f of negative 3 equals negative 2. Good. Then f of 2 means that x equals 2. So everywhere I see the x, I'm going to put 2. So my answer would be what f of 2 equals. So 2 squared plus 3 times 2 minus 2 gets me 8. Alrighty. That's just a review of function notation, and we're going to actually use this in a little bit to find slope. Today we're going to learn how to calculate the slope of the line given a variety of representations. So, types of slopes. Slope tells us how steep a line is. We can have a positive slope, which shows us that the line goes up and down. We could have a negative slope, which tells us that the line goes down. It's a decreasing line. No slope. No slope would mean that the line is horizontal. Or another way we could say no slope is a slope of 0. That's more common. Or an undefined slope, which would be an up and down line. So horizontal lines are 0 slope and vertical lines are undefined slope. Alright, how do we find the slope of a graph? To find the slope of a graph, we use this famous formula called rise over run. This is where we first look at how much do we go up or down. Then we look how much do we go left or right to get from one point to the next. So you go to your graph and you look for actual points on the graph. What does that mean? An actual point is a point that goes through two lines. So for example, I could not use this because that doesn't perfectly go through the meeting point of the lines. Okay, so two real points would be this and this. Those perfectly go through the edges of two lines. Now I would count the rise. How much should I go up to get from this point to this point? I went up 2. How much should I go over? I went over 3. Because we were going up and to the right, they would both be positive, giving me a slope of 2 over 3. Now sometimes I might not recognize those 2 points. Maybe I recognize points that are further from each other. That is totally okay. Maybe I recognize these. Those are 2 real points. How much should I go up was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And to the right was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We rose 6. We went to the right 9. And 6 over 9, if you simplify that in the calculator, 6 over 9 gives us the answer of 2 over 3, meaning the slopes are the same. So that is how we find the slope of a line. Let's practice doing this. First, you're going to have to find real points. You couldn't say this is a real point because that's in between a box. We need to be on the edge of a box. So right here and right here. Alrighty. How much do we rise? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we ran 1, 2, 3. So this slope would be 4 over 3. Those are actually the only 2 real points on this graph. Those are the only 2 points we could use to find our slope. Let's look at the next one. We have this is a real point, and we have this is a real point. There might be another one in between, but I just chose those 2 for now. This line is going down. How much did we go down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. and we went over. Oh, but if we went down, it's negative 8. And then we went to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope would be negative 8 over 5. There's no way to simplify that, so that is our final slope. And how do you know if you could simplify that? You could type it in the fraction key of your calculator, and if it doesn't change, it cannot be simplified. Alright, let's look at the next one. Let's find 2 points. I have a point right here, and I have a point right here. Okay, let's go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We went up, so it's positive 8, and we went to the right, 3. So our slope is 8 over 3. Good job. Alright, let's look at the next one. 2 points. I could use this point right here, and I could use this as a real point. Good job. I could have also used this point down here. Alright. How should we go down for these first 2 points? 1, 2, 3. If you went down, that's negative 3. And we went to the right, 2. So our slope would be negative 3 over 2. Or if you ended up using, let's say, this point and this point, you would say you went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We went down negative 6 and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 6 over 4. If you type that in the calculator, the simplified version is negative 3 over 2, which is our same answer as before. Alright, so that is how to find the slope of a graph. Now, let's look at these real quick. Rise over run. How much should we rise? If I choose 2 random points, let's choose this and this. How much did I rise? I didn't rise at all. So that's 0. But how much did I run? 1, 2, 3. If I try to simplify this, 0 over 3 equals 0. So this is a slope of 0. The line is not steep, it's just a left or right line. All horizontal lines get a slope of 0. The next one, let's choose 2 random points. I'll choose this and this. How much did I rise? Well, from here to here, I went up 1, 2, 3. And how much did I run? I didn't have to go left or right, so that's 0. Now let's type this in the calculator. 3 over 0 does not just become 0 or 3. It actually doesn't work. It's undefined. And that is a type of slope, undefined. So remember, all horizontal lines have a slope of 0. All vertical lines have a slope that is undefined. Alright, now the slope formula. A line passes through 2 different points. We call the first point x1, y1. And we call the second point x2, y2. And we use the letter m to represent slope. And we could use the formula rise over run. When you're rising, you're looking how much did the y values change. So we could think of, you take the second y value and subtract it from the first y value. Then when we're running along the x-axis. So we're looking how much did the y's change. What is y2 minus y1? You could take both points and label them x1, y1, x2, y2. And then use a formula and plug in and do the calculations to find your final answer. So let's practice this. Back to the do now. We found that f of negative 3 equals, what was it? Negative 2, and the other one was 8. So these give me the points. Negative 3, comma, negative 2. And the other point is 2, comma, 8. Now, you always start by labeling your points. x1, y1, x2, y2. And now we use the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's plug in what we know. Y2 is 8 minus y1 is negative 2. X2 is 2 minus x1 is negative 3. 8 minus negative 2 is 10. 2 minus negative 3 is 5. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. So what does this mean? This means that we rise 2 and we run 1. We rise 2 and we run 1. Good. Now let's try another example of this. We are given the expression the square root of x plus 3, and they want us to find 9 and find 16. So to find 9, we would just be plugging in the square root of 9, which is 3, plus 3, and that gives us 6. Then to find f of 16, that would be the square root of 16, which is 4, plus 3, which gets us 7. Good. Now let's find the slope. So the first one would give us 9, 6, and the second one would be 16, 7. And let's label these x1, y1, x2, y2. Our slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is 7 minus y1 is 6. x2 is 16 minus x1 is 9. 16 minus 9 gets us 7. So this means we would be rising 1 and we would be running 7. Good. Alright, now we are going to move on to something simpler where we don't have to find the x and the y. Instead, it's going to be given to us as a set of coordinate points. So how we do this is we're already given the two x and y values. We are going to label them by writing. Count the first x as that's our first x. You label the second x, the second y as, you label the second number as y1. Then the second point is x2 and y2. So it's x and y for a set of points, and then we have our first set of points and our second set of points. Now the formula we use is you're going to be on the top subtracting the y's, so y2 minus y1, and on the bottom you're going to be subtracting the x's, so x2 minus x1. And let's see how this goes. So y2 is negative 5 minus y1 is 3, and then x2 is 7 minus x1 is negative 1. And now the cool thing is we can type this directly into the calculator. Negative 5 minus 3. And let's just go over those x's real quick. The x2 was 7, and you always have to put a minus sign, but then your x1 was negative 1. So it's okay to have a minus negative. Enter. And that gives us the answer of negative 1. And I just want to get our ideas thinking real quick. That negative 1, if we wanted to write it as a fraction, we can put it over 1. Your top number talks about your change in y, how much y changed. And when you change in y, you move up or down. So if we're moving negative 1, that means we move down 1. And our run, which is our change in x, which is the bottom number, talks about how much you move left or right. If you're moving a positive 1, that means you're moving to the right 1. That is what we are going to start doing in the next lesson where we learn how to graph. And now individual practice, I want you to pause the video and try this on your own, see if you can figure this one out. Start it the same way we did with labeling the points. Alright, so your first point is x1 and y1, and your second point is x2 and y2. Now using the formula, you're going to be subtracting your x's on top, subtracting your y's on top. Do not make that mistake. We're subtracting our y's on top and our x is on the bottom. So on top, we're doing the second y minus the first y, and on the bottom, we're doing the second x minus the first x. And let's see how this would look. We're subtracting. Our second y is 6. Our first y is -3. So here we're doing 6 minus -3. Okay. On top, we're doing 6 minus -3. Then on the bottom, we're going to be doing -8 minus 4. -8 minus 4. And we get -3/4. Beautiful. So remember, the top number talks about rising. If you're rising a -3, you're going down 3. And if you're running a 4, that means you're going to the right 4. Good job. Now we are going to see how to do this when we are giving a table. All right, guided practice. Let's find the slope below. We're going to use any 2 points to find the slope. Usually I like to use 2 positive numbers, but I'll just use these negatives just to show us a little bit harder. So, this would be our first x. This is our second x. This is our first y. This is our second y. So we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is -1 minus y1 is -3. x2 is -1 minus x1 is -2. Good, so now let's type this right in. -1 minus -3 over -1 minus -2. And the answer is 2. You can leave it as a fraction, 2 over 1, which would tell us we go up 2 and over 1. You could also use 2 different positive points. We could use these points. So it would be x2, which is, no, x1, which is x2, no, it would be y2, sorry, x1, x2, y1, y2. The first thing in our formula is y2, which is 5, minus y1 is 3. Then x2 is 2, minus x1 is 1. And that gives us 5 minus 3 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. And that is the same answer we got. Now you try these two. Let's say I want to use 2 positive numbers. Let's say I use these. I would label them x1, x2, and then y1, y2. Alright, the formula is y2, which is -2, minus y1, which is 0, then x2, which is 12, minus x1, which is 8. -2 minus 0 is -2. 12 minus 8 is 4. And this would simplify to -1 over 2. -1 is our rising, meaning that we would go down 1. 2 is our running, which means we would go to the right 2. Good. And that wraps up our lesson on finding slope. Nice job.